All right, student, really quick again, thank you for joining me for this note on natural selection. Again, I'm going to continue to do this, but if I start noticing there's no need for the video, then I'll probably have to stop. But hopefully you guys take advantage of this video so you can review the notes. So what I have here is natural selection note, right? So we're moving on to a new topic called natural selection. If you guys look at this picture, right, what can you see in this picture, right? Some of you guys would say you see goats, right? There are goats parents, baby goats. Some are tall, some are short. But you can see that the one that survive best would be the tall one, right? Because they fit into this environment. They're able to get the fruits easier. And what happened to the smaller one? Smaller one are die out, right? So we're moving on to natural selection. Natural selection is what it sounds, nature select. Nature select who survive or not. So keep that in mind, okay? So natural selection means nature select who survive or not. So what we have here is a little quick review. We'll talk about this later on. We know that there are different type of organism, right? We know that biodiversity, right? Not just one type of animal, there's multiple. For example, we know that they all evolve, change. We'll talk about that later on after natural selection. This one guy right here is very important, okay? This one guy right here. This is Charles Darwin, right? We'll bring it up and we'll bring it again. We'll talk about Charles Darwin again when they come close after, right? But Charles Darwin, what did he do in the 1800? What he did, where he took a he was on one of the Navy ship, the British Royal Navy ship called HMS Beagle. It technically took him around the world pretty much. And as he go around the world, he would collect data, information, and he started noticing these finches, these birds, on the island called Galapagos Island. Galapagos. We'll talk about this later on, by the way. He noticed that even though the original finch are this one, but he know that there are different type of finches as well, and they all have different beaks, and each beaks allow them to eat different type of food, right? So the one eat leaf have this beak, the one eat fruits and have this beak, grubs and so on, right? So that's what he noticed. And then he also collect fossil, like dinosaur fossil, other thing too. And then he decided to publish a book in the 1859. He called that Modification, Origin of Species. He said that every species evolved from one original organism, right? In this book, he technically focused on what we call a descent with modification. Descent with modification. That means things change, right? Right, and we'll talk about Charles Darwin later on, right? So he called it descent with modification. Things change. And the question is, what make it change, right? Why do organisms evolve or change? And he said that's because of natural selection. So again, what's natural selection again? Who select? Nature select. He said nature is what make things change, right? Because nature changed, so things has to change. And within this book, he named 5 major requirements. 5 things that you must meet if you want to survive, if you want to be chosen by nature. 5 things. And today we're going to focus on 3 things, 3 requirements. The first requirement, he said, if you want to be selected by nature, according to Charles Darwin, first thing is you need to have many offspring. Many offspring. Because in a tough environment, at least majority of them die, at least some of them will still live. And that's the point of having many offspring. And you can see this in many living things. For example, plants, many seeds, right? Not all the seeds gonna make it, but at least some will make it. In frogs, for example, many eggs, right? Fish, many fishes, many fish, right? At least one will make it. Not all, but one, okay? So that's what he said. First requirement, you need to have many offspring. Does that mean that human we go out and have many offspring? Well, when you have many offspring, the chance that one will survive is higher, right? And that one will carry on your gene, because remember, we said one requirement to life is to be able to pass on your gene, because we don't live forever. And he said that the second requirement is that the offspring has to have variation. What does variation mean? Differences, right? For example, snail, different pattern. Tiger, different pattern. Human, different personality. Plant, different way, tree and stuff. So differences, they have to be differences, right? They cannot be identical. He said the chance that they are different, the chance that it's when they're different, the chance to survive is higher. When they're identical, the chance to survive will be lower, because they all have to fight for the same identical stuff. And we learn from genetic, if you gotta remember, what make organism different is mutation, right? Random change, right? Something you can't control. For example, you might mutate to have an extra finger. Now you are different from the regular human, but that give you more skill, right? More fingers to do things. So that's the second requirement, is differences. So the first requirement is many offspring. Second is they have to be different from each other. You don't want them to be identical. And the third requirement, what he said, is struggle to survive, right? You might have differences, you might have many offspring, but if all of them are lazy, they just sit still, then they'll be destroyed by environment. Just kind of like this fish, right? This small fish, he is different from this big fish. But the moment that he has to struggle to survive, right? If the moment he stops struggling, then he'll be in by the fish. So that is the third requirement, differences, okay? Like this, an example would be this, right? There are many beavers, many offspring. All of them are usually the same. But this guy, he acquire a mutation. He has a saw hand, right? If he doesn't struggle to learn how to use it, then his variation will just be nothing. So the group will think he's weird and they will just destroy him. But if he learns to use it, he'll be able to cut down many trees, build many houses, and have many girlfriends, and have many kids, or wife, have kids. And that means he increases his chance of passing on his gene. And he'll be picked by nature. And like the people that are regular, they might have to all compete for the same thing, and not all of them gonna make it. But this guy, he struggle to use different, right? So this also apply in human life, right? We learn to fit in. We learn to be different, right? We don't want everybody to be identical, right? We don't want everybody to do the same things. We don't want everybody to eat the same thing. Then you all have to struggle for the same thing. We want you to be different. But having differences doesn't mean you can sit back and enjoy it. No, you gotta learn to use it, right? For example, somebody who's super tall, you're different. But if you learn to use it in a sport, there you go, you'll be successful. Somebody who's short but run fast, if you learn to run fast, then there you go, you'll be successful. So this is what we call adaptation. The word adaptation. You have to learn to fit in, right? Not just think of your life, right? You need to learn to fit in. So he said 3 requirements, but again, this is in his book, he has 5 requirements, right? Limited resource is something we didn't talk about, right? Limiting factor, right? You don't have enough, then you'll have to fight. And population, right? We know that when you carrying capacity, right? We learned about that. You can't fit everybody, so everybody have to fit to struggle to survive, to continue to survive. And this is what he called natural selection, right? And the reason he called descent with modification is because descent means you have kids. You need to have kids for you to pass on the gene. And variation, modification mean they have to be different. And you can see in the human history, there's many changes in human history, right? If you believe in evolution, and we'll talk about evolution later on, right? Natural selection. Right? Natural selection can be seen in bacteria, right? You have medication, antibiotic to kill bacteria, or virus, vaccine to kill virus, but do they ever stop? No, right? You're always going to get new bacteria, new viruses, because they learn to be different and struggle to survive, so they always evolve. So for us to survive as well, we need to continue to evolve, to change, right? Some other stuff. All right. So I will leave it there for you. Or another example would be like roaches, right? You can spray and kill all the roaches, but they're always gonna be there because there's a few of them who survive the spray, and that few are the differences, and they will then go on and reproduce more. So then you always have to create new spray, okay? Or including antibiotic, right? Medication to kill bacteria. You don't want to misuse it because you don't want to overuse it, because you can't kill all 100% bacteria. There's always going to be a few that are variation different, and that few will survive that and they go on and reproduce. So what ensure that we will not be infected, continue to be infected by new bacteria, is we got to change. We got to continue our science, finding new antibiotic or new vaccine, right? Since we're talking about COVID-19, okay. All right, I will leave it there, natural selection. And there's something that we'll talk about later. It's called sexual selection as well, right? That's something Charles Darwin cannot explain, right? Right. And we'll talk about that in the video. So don't forget to do a summary. I try to keep the video short so that way you can watch, highlight it, annotate, and then save it. Okay. All right. I will see you